Hello everybody and welcome back. I hope you managed to grab a quick lunch and some water or a drink. So without further ado, we're on to our next session, which is session 5, which is going to talk about accessing markets and opportunities. And I think particularly given the year that we've had last year, it's a good time to review where the opportunities are in the current operating climate. And you're going to hear today from Tim Landreth, who is part of the ISE team, Laura Marney from UnLtd, and Ben Howells from the Living Well Consortium. So over to you, Tim.
Thanks very much, Sarah. Yeah, we have had an amazing year, and despite it being an odd year, we've had some fantastic opportunities for social enterprises to grow and do business. Central and local government are very much leading on social value generally. But one of my little frustrations is there's more to it than people in ivory towers saying that they want more social value. And actually, the people on the ground delivering it is the trick. And there's so many buyers out there that want to make a difference as far as social value is concerned. It was great to hear the two Claires talking about the central and local government, and particularly I thought Claire P, or S, beg pardon, about building in opportunities on long-term projects, such as making the council housing estate more efficient. And that's such an opportunity because it's multi-years and we've got a really good chance of doing something now. In Birmingham, which is what I'm all about, we've got the Commonwealth Games, we've got HS2, we've had the recent announcement that Goldman Sachs are coming to town, with the biggest local authority in the country, lots of social housing, and really one of the big things is there's lots and lots and lots of social enterprises in Birmingham, offering a variety of services and products. As Sarah said, we've got Laura from UnLtd and Ben from the Living Well Consortium, both giving a slightly different perspective on the sort of current marketplace. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about a project I've been working on for the last 12 months or so, and where I fit in within ISE. And hopefully it'll give you some food for thought. We really would like Q&A. We've got time in this session because there's only 3 of us. We're all going to have 10 minutes to sort of make a presentation. And if you can ask your questions after our presentations, we'll hopefully be able to reflect on your questions. The story, as far as I'm concerned, goes about 12 years ago, I met Sarah. And the reason that I met her was because I was working for a large building contractor that wanted to get on a big framework, funnily enough, with Birmingham. And we were looking at an opportunity to potentially stimulate social enterprise growth through that framework. And unfortunately, we didn't win the job and the hub didn't happen. But it was a sort of example of a very early stage thought process that may have led to something big happening and social enterprises being developed for a specific marketplace. Since then, I've always looked for opportunities to trade with social enterprises in the businesses that I've been involved with. I've recently run children's nurseries, and now I'm working for an environmental company, and already I've made a few introductions. So it's what you need. You need champions. But the very recent work is a project called Buy Social, which was through SEUK. Thank you very much, SEUK. But paid for by the players of the People's Postcode Lottery. And it's been a fantastic project. We've had the problems with COVID, but even given those, we've managed to run meet the buyer sessions, buyer training sessions, and awareness sessions. And this is one of the things that's come up over and over again, is that social enterprises often struggle, whether it's COVID or Zoom or anything else, they often struggle anyway to network effectively. And these Meet the Buyer events have been pretty successful in making introductions. And what we found is once a client or a buyer kind of gets involved with one social enterprise, they often follow on with getting involved with far more social enterprises. Some highlights, depending on how you add it up, we've made nearly £2 million worth of introductions from buyers to social enterprises. And one of my favourites is we've developed a relationship with McLaughlin and Harvey, who are developing a big site for Birmingham Council related to a big sporting event, which we can't mention. And they are they're all over social value generally, and they realise that one element of delivering social value is through social enterprises. And what they've done is they've engaged with their own supply chain, because they realise that their £50 million job isn't necessarily going to directly engage with social enterprises. It's more likely to be through the supply chain. And so they've, with me, run 3 supply chain awareness sessions, which we've had, I think, about 22 different suppliers of theirs within the rooms. And as a result, 1 or 2 really enthusiastic ones have engaged with all sorts of social enterprises, including ISE, which is great. But we've done social enterprise hampers for one of the suppliers. We've someone's using doing their PAT testing, and they might be all small wins, but when you add them all up, they become quite significant. Another favourite within that one is there's a social enterprise in Birmingham called Centrala that runs an event space and a performance space and a gallery and a cafe. And as a result of COVID, basically they've closed. And this company, McLaughlin and Harvey, were looking for someone to do on-site catering. And we approached a number of social enterprises to run this facility. And as a result of them supporting Centrala a little bit with a grant to start with, we've ended up with Centrala being on site, and the size of that opportunity when there's up to 200 or 300 people on site any day is quite significant, and will allow Centrala to potentially develop a new product that they can take to another building site. I mean, my background is construction, so a lot of my introductions have been construction related, but this is, for me, a real win, particularly in this current climate. It's a real two-way street between social enterprises trading and buyers buying. The social enterprises need to present themselves very professionally, very commercially. They need to be able to identify what their social value outcomes are, because most of the buyers that I've been dealing with have they've got targets, and whilst it's a bit what's the word, they're doing it to some extent to address those targets, but because the targets are there, some of them are actually changing their culture. But the social enterprise needs to say, well, this is what I do, and this is the social value outcome. The other things I've learned, social value, social enterprise has to be a business for me first and foremost, but with added value. So Latoya, in one of the last sessions, was saying that she started her business, and then the social value came when she was talking about the clients that she works with and everything else. And it's only recently that the grant funding side of things has come. Now, different businesses run different models where there's a bit more or a bit less grant funding, a bit more trading. But nevertheless, her example is a really good one where the business comes first. But there is a difficulty getting that balance right. And for social enterprises, I would say that you need to make sure your service matches the market's needs, and that you need to be able to flex and change it, and not say, well, this is what I've got to offer. Just like any other business, and that's the other thing. You're just like any other business. The health side of things, which Ben's going to talk about, there's a slightly different thing where you really do need to have your outcome absolutely off pat, because that's what will get you commissioned. And you know, without that outcome being down to your, you know, the value to society, you won't get it. I've had several sort of frustrations during my year, and the fact that we can't network properly, it has been frustrating. I'm kind of, it's very difficult for me to get round to everybody, you know. And in the questions very early on in the chat today, there were people say, well, how can I, as a big construction company, engage with more social enterprises? Well, maybe we're not telling our story strongly enough. That, you know, we've had for the last year me in place to make those sorts of introductions, and ISE will continue to do so. So me being a single person, you know, it needs the whole thing to get together. Buyers not getting it. So some buyers are really good at understanding the whole thing, but some are less good, or they, like, again, another comment earlier, they just want to go on price. Well, hopefully those price drivers are changing, and the quality, price, social value is going to be more balanced. And the other big frustration is clients not building in social value enough. So building in to long-term projects like HS2, like the Commonwealth Games, rather than just saying we want social value outcomes, say what are the best social value outcomes from this very project. You know, HS2 is going to last for a long time, and over the years a social enterprise could start and grow massively just through that one project, through the supply chain. And again, within this room we have a number of clients and we have a number of social enterprises. So I'm going to wrap up with just some very quick advice. And for social enterprises, get some trusted advisors, whether it's your board, you know, make sure your board's got representatives from the commercial world so that you understand how to present yourself commercially, or whether it's someone like ISE, you know, use the services of ISE and other organizations and make networks. We're not very good at buying from each other, let alone anything else, social enterprises. So if we can buy from each other, we can learn and grow out our own businesses. And again, be open to adapting your business offering to suit the marketplace, and focus on the business. Make sure it delivers the social value outcomes that you want. The one thing about opportunities for people that I've learned in the Buy Social thing, there are lots of portals out there, which if you spent all, you know, looked at all the portals, you could probably spend all day, every day looking at your portals. But, and Claire mentioned a couple of national ones, the Contracts Finder and the and things. But locally, if there are lots of local social enterprises here, I'd really look at Find It In as a place. So look at Find It in Birmingham, find it in Sandwell, find it in Worcestershire. All of those places are very local, and certain organisations have decided that that's where they're going to advertise all their jobs, including Birmingham Council. So I'd look there locally. And then advice to buyers, it's quite a hard task, but and sometimes your people might need educating, but look for opportunities to engage. There really are lots and lots of products and services that social enterprises offer. You can expect a high quality of service or product. Don't expect it to be, because it's a social enterprise, be any less high quality than anything else that you might get. And if it comes that it's it is less than you would expect, have the dialogue with the social enterprise or any other company, because they've got to improve and you deserve the right product. And the overall one, and this is the one that's, you know, markets and opportunities, is look to build it in early. Don't make it a late decision. Don't make it when you need to buy something tomorrow. Think about how you can embed it within your organisation and processes. So that's the Buy Social thing, and me over the last 12 months. It's been a fantastic project, and I'd like to thank ISE for putting me on it. It's used some of my skills, and I've really enjoyed it. But anyway, I'm going to move on now. I think we said the order was Ben next. So Ben, would you like to just talk about your perspective on the sort of health market? Thank you very much.
Yeah. Hi, all. Thanks, Tim. So for me, my background is I've worked in the charity or third sector in Birmingham for around 10 years. I worked for an organisation called Aquarius, who we dealt with substance misuse with people with drug, gambling or alcohol problems. And in that time at Aquarius, I worked on procurement from small bids for up to £10,000 to bigger partnership bids for up to £2 million. So I've sort of seen the whole pathway across. In my now role as CEO at Living Well again, we bid for small grants and trust funds from £10,000, £12,000, £15,000 up into running quite large contracts that I'll come on to in a minute. So that's a bit of background on me. Living Well Consortium itself, we've got around 28 members in Birmingham. Just over maybe 12 to 13 of those deliver on subcontracts. So we hold the big contracts and then we commission our members to deliver on the subcontracts. How Living Well Consortium came about around 9 or 10 years ago was at the time, very visionary view of collaboration. So 5 smaller organisations came together to see a market in mental health and social care that the contracts were getting bigger and bigger. And actually, they were becoming harder to win on their own. So they came together as a group and a collaboration to form a consortium and to pilot running some of the larger contracts. So at the time, that was, I think, extraordinarily visionary. Unfortunately, I wasn't part of that, but the guys who were, you know, it really was, and it was in a way 10 years ahead of its time. So currently, 10 years on, we have a turnover of around sort of 3.5 million. We run 2 major mental health contracts for Forward Thinking Birmingham and for Birmingham and Solihull CCG. And over the last 12 months, we've had just over 12,000 people come through Living Well Consortium for mental health treatment. So our numbers are quite high and again have grown during the pandemic. And how that's impacted people's mental health in generally, I'm not going to touch on in this bit because it's about procurement opportunities. But obviously, our numbers are going up with the impact that the pandemic has had. So, in the sort of core section, I'm going to talk about my main bit is to try and be as practical and possible as to how third sector organisations or social enterprises can be part of health and social care or wider procurement. And I'll start by saying I genuinely feel that in many, many areas across health and social care, across innovation for the needs of people who are struggling, the social enterprise and third sector has the ideas. The innovation and ideas sit in this sector. They don't sit, in my opinion, in the statutory sector. Apologies to anyone on this call who is in that sector. Do a lot of good things well, but I think the innovation ideas do sit in the third and social enterprise sector. I think that's been drawn out during COVID and certainly in mental health. It's been the third sector providers, Birmingham Mind, Living Well, other members of the consortium who've come up with new and different ways to support people with their mental health and to take on quicker some of the middle contracts that some of the extra government funding has come down. So I've always thought that the innovation ideas and speed to move sits in the third and social enterprise sector, but I've seen that practically over the last 12 months enormously. I also feel very, very strongly that people and organisations based in communities and based in cities like Birmingham understand the city and the needs of people better than some of the bigger, larger organisations that come in from other areas. I think that has caused problems in the past by just saying, well, we know our community, so give us money, but I'll come on to that in a minute. But I do genuinely think, again, the pandemic has really driven home that organisations based in areas, whether that be a physical place or with knowledge of debt or knowledge of technology, really understand actually what people are needing, and that is changing during COVID. So I do think you add the local knowledge and the speed and innovation, and the third sector and social enterprise sector has a great package. The problem has been in terms of procurement that I've seen over the last 5 to 6 years is contracts have become bigger. So lots of smaller contracts have become one. Commissioners have become less. There's less commissioners around. So they've often wrapped up pots of money into one big one and looked for a lead provider model. The lead provider model of one large provider filtering down to lots of smaller providers on paper looks good. But what I think has happened, particularly in health and social care, is larger national charities have come in as the lead provider, being able to say, we can take on the full responsibility for this enormous contract. And the trickle down that was promised into smaller, more innovative organisations hasn't happened. I think a lot of the sort of small and middle-sized organisations, we were slightly slower to see that coming and didn't move quick enough and didn't look to work in collaboration quick enough. And again, I'll keep coming back to it during this talk. I strongly believe collaboration and organisations coming together where things are not a zero-sum game is the only way forward for us as a sector, and I don't think we moved quick enough to do it. And as procurement and contracts became bigger, more unwieldy, they began to take a lot of time to fill in, a lot of time to bid for, lots of technical sides, asking for a good portion of your reserves to guarantee you can do the contract. All of that sort of stuff really started to disengage some of the smaller startups from those areas. And what we've practically at Living Well is the contracts we hold, we can only hold because we are a consortium, because we have collaborated to have a centre that can act as the lead provider and feed down to the smaller organisations. And again, that sort of zero-sum game attitude that can happen sometimes in the third and social enterprise sector only benefits the large organisations, the large charities, because we become fragmented. I also think the change over the last few years has been commissioners and people and grants and trusts, and whether it's statutory commissioning or grants and trust commissioning, have much bigger portfolios. So the personal relationships that often we had as leaders of our organisations in the past matter less, to be blunt, because the bidding process is long and convoluted. It's run by procurement. They've got 20 grants to look after. So actually those smaller relationships of actually we build with commissioners have been stretched. I think to move on to the health and social care specifically, there are changes going on in the sector that could be good or bad. The clinical commissioning group, the CCG, is being phased out, and that's the body that commissions all of health and social care funding across Birmingham and Solihull, which will be a big change in the sector. And we're not quite sure how the next stage of the integrated care systems will work. I think, as I've just had a lovely nudge from Tim that I've got 2 minutes to go, I'm going to move on to sort of next steps and suggestions and some practicalities. We might be able to pick up some more of this in the questions. I think as a sector, great ideas are not enough anymore. We need to structure them, package them, and bring them together in a collaboration to show outcomes and to show cost benefit and to show to the bigger commissioners that we can have impact. I think we need to work on our ideas more and test them out. I know Tim said it before, use organisations like IOC, use bid writers, use your board, use other members of the sector to test them, to talk them through, get constructive criticisms. I think as we build partnerships, those partnerships have to be genuine partnerships, which is a cliche, not an organisation that dominates and gives crumbs off the table. And I think we as a sector, the only way to do that with statutory organisations is to continue to come together. And I think finally, as we try and come together, bring innovative ideas in together to try and be able to impact the marketplace, and what we all want to do is win some money to run our ideas, to run our services, we need to have a much clearer picture in our sector of outcomes of what the impact on the people we're looking to do it is, because all commissioning, whether that be for £10,000 up to £10 million now, outputs are no longer enough. Evaluation, proof of concept, proof of impact, research, all of that now is far more relevant than ever. And the old conversation of we know what people need is no longer strong enough. And the way to bring that together is to test that in collaboration, and actually to bring two organisations together, three that have one part of the idea to make a greater sum than its parts. So I'll finish here because I think I've probably got about 8 seconds to go.
Fantastic, Ben. That was brilliant. So I'll now hand you over to Laura, who's from UnLtd, and she's actually heading a project that's really interesting and a great way of social enterprises getting exposed to more of the marketplace. Thank you.
Yeah, so as Tim mentioned, I'm a project lead at UnLtd, and I've been working in the charity sector for about 10 years now, with a big chunk of that working with social enterprises. So I have run a social enterprise myself, so I know a lot about that. And I've been at UnLtd for the last 3 years. The first couple of years I was a support manager, really helping social enterprises grow their business through a program we ran called Thrive. And quite often in that role, I saw that a big barrier to growth was around sales and marketing. So around reaching the right markets, putting sales strategies in place. So really kind of get why this is a real big topic to talk about in the sector. For the last couple of months, I've been working on a project which is a new partnership with eBay. So we have been, over the last year or so through COVID, we've seen that a lot of social entrepreneurs have been contacting us asking for extra support around digital marketing. There's been a lot of pivoting to both selling products online and reaching new markets, but also adapting products and services so they can be delivered online. So for that reason, we decided to partner with eBay to really be able to drive that and offer more funding and support. So if you don't know anything about UnLtd, so we are the UK Foundation for Social Entrepreneurs. So we fund and support hundreds of people each year to help them start and grow their social ventures. What we're looking at the moment is really building in a funding and support package around e-commerce, around selling online. So this partnership with eBay is actually part of a broader project for eBay called eBay for Change. So this is a three-year multi-million-pound training and finance support package across the social enterprise sector. So the whole program is looking to create a hub on eBay to connect its 29 million UK shoppers with small businesses and social enterprises with a social mission. So there's a huge project going on. There's the partners involved are also SEUK and the World Fair Trade Organization. UnLtd are part of this partnership, and what we're really focusing on is supporting those social enterprises that are maybe not quite ready to know what marketplace they should be using, what platform they should be using, whether e-commerce is right for them, and offering support and funding to help them get there. So what we really want to do is contribute to an inclusive, equitable, and sustainable recovery from COVID-19, and through preparing the social entrepreneurs to succeed in an online marketplace. This partnership is going to support over 200 social entrepreneurs over the next 3 years. We've just started the process. We have just started designing what this is going to look like, so it's fresh off the press. Before we jumped in and just decided we know what social entrepreneurs need, we actually thought we'd take the time to design a process, work with social entrepreneurs, do some research, and work out exactly how we can provide that best support to help social entrepreneurs sell more online and ultimately grow their impact. So I'm going to talk you through a couple of things that we've learned through this process, which I think hopefully are really helpful tips. So one main thing that we've learned is that before you kind of jump into e-commerce, it's really important to have the right product market fit. And what we mean by that is that you have a product or service that fills a market need. It's a good quality, people want it. You also know who your target market is and how best to access that market. So is selling something online the best way to reach that market? Because sometimes it isn't, and we don't want to jump in and invest in accessing a market when it's not the right for you. And there's also making sure that you're priced competitively. As soon as you're on an online marketplace, the pricing is a lot more price sensitive. There's a lot more transparent. So there's stages in the process before being able to sell successfully online. We also found out that it's important to understand how selling online will affect your impact. Quite often there can be a direct correlation between growth of online sales and growth of impact for a lot of social enterprises, but actually this can have a negative impact. Could accessing these new markets have a negative effect on your social impact? And it's really worth thinking that through as you look at both growing your sales and growing your social impact. So if the product market fit is right, if you're ready to go, what social entrepreneurs were telling us is what they need is having the resources and the confidence to test different approaches to reaching target markets. And this was a clear kind of need, rather than generic workshops that aren't really tailored to the needs of the individual. That actually what's really helpful is help around testing different platforms, maybe different social media campaigns, looking at something like Google AdWords, whatever that is, and having someone to support you through that and getting the kind of resources and confidence to do that is a key need. And the final tip of what we found out was that actually you could put this all in place. You could really increase your online sales and do really well and grow. But if you don't have the right systems and processes in place to fulfill these online sales, that's going to be tricky. So it's also thinking about, do you have enough stock? Can you ship items quickly? If you're offering online service, how is that facilitated? How many people can you reach, and what's the timeline there? So a lot of things to think about there. So the next step after we've done all this research, we've designed a pilot that we're going to be testing with a small group of social entrepreneurs. From the research, as I mentioned, we found that there's a lot of e-commerce training support available out there, but what's missing is, and what social entrepreneurs are looking for, is a package of kind of free, tailored, expert-driven guidance and hands-on support. So this is what we're trying to design to be able to have a really great impact on social entrepreneurs. So yes, we're running this pilot from May to September this year with a small group, and we will be continuing to test and learn and improve our offer as we go along. We hope that we can kind of roll that out further later in the year. But for now, if you're interested in this and want to get involved, you can find out more by signing up to our UnLtd's mailing list. We'll be mailing about that. But if you are a social entrepreneur, if you want to apply for it, you can check out our website. Our next round of applications close on the 30th of June. And this is for kind of early stage social enterprises. if you're not a social entrepreneur, but you have a background in e-commerce or digital marketing, or if you successfully grown an e-commerce business, we'd love to hear from you. We are looking for mentors, volunteers to help us run this pilot and to work with social entrepreneurs to help them grow their e-commerce, access new markets, and essentially grow their impact. So happy to chat to anyone afterwards about that. And that's it from me.
Thanks very much, Laura. That was really really interesting. It's fantastic that someone like eBay has decided that this is a good place to be, because they're like any other buyer or facilitator, that the goodness rubs off on them, if you know what I mean. And that, you know, cynically, that's what they're doing it for. But they're also trying to stimulate the sector. I also like the idea of your free sessions. That's one of the big issues we have, I think, is that as social enterprises, a lot of people expect us to do things for free. And in the room, there are some people that, you know, at some point we might be trying to persuade that, well, we can't do it for free because it needs people's time and all those sorts of things. So that's an interesting point. And the digital thing, you know, I know that Ben does some things digitally, and Martin certainly has a digital offering. It kind of is the way forward. I love meeting people, so I try and avoid digital stuff, but it is the way forward to a large extent. And then Ben, I think you can't underplay the role of collaboration, and that's what you're all about. The issue is that a startup social enterprise might turn over almost no money year one, or certainly not, you know, make any money year 1 or 2 or 3. And how on earth do they get opportunities other than word of mouth, personal recommendations and things like that? So joining together and having a combined effort on marketing, and, you know, again, using people like ISE to put in a good word and say, oh, you could use these guys, and having the financial strength to be able to trade and, you know, not be at risk of falling over. I think that's the way to go. And in fact, last year we talked about potentially a social enterprise cleaning consortium, where a number of people like Latoya and Jericho and a few others around the country actually shared, I guess, competitor information that said, well, we need probably more people on this. How do we do that? So I think we'll move in to some questions. There's a couple that I want to sort of head off immediately. In fact, the most popular question is there a newsletter we can sign up to be informed of Meet the Buyer events? Well, this year's Meet the Buyer events, the ones I've run, have been very specific to particular sectors and particular projects. So those have been kind of through invite by me. In the future, as we return to some sort of normality and it's easier to facilitate 40 people in a room, all meeting each other, we will be doing Meet the Buyer events. And if you sign up to ISE's newsletter and keep an eye on ISE's social media feeds, that would be good. Because you're a social enterprise, it doesn't stop you going to other Meet the Buyer events, of course. So again, I would recommend Find It In. I know they have a Meet the Buyer or a networking event coming up later in the year, I think in October. I'd certainly recommend you sign up to Find It In as a forum locally. And yeah, just keep your eyes open, you know, just look at social media, look at LinkedIn, look at in my world, in the contractors and building world, most of the contractors have to do Meet the Buyer events as part of their contract commitments. So look out for those. And in fact, I've met a number of social enterprises I didn't know at those Meet the Buyer events before the world changed last year. Okay, the second question, I'm going to pose to Ben, why do social enterprises find it so hard to market their services and products?
It's a cracking question, whoever's asked that one. I think many reasons. I think on the negative side, I think the bigger statutory organisations have got, the bigger councils have got, the less time and space they want to create to hear from smaller organisations that are a bit of a gamble. I also think, from my point of view, the fact that some national charities have become so big, with turnovers over 100 million, 120 million, that has swamped the smaller guys out of the market. And I think some of those guys have not given the time, space and energy to listen to smaller social enterprises and to be part of it. And I don't actually think that's been for the good. So that's the sort of negative side of the market. The negative side of, I think, our sector and the smaller is sometimes we don't present and package the ideas well enough. I do think we don't explain them in writing and in bids well enough, and I don't think the people who have the ideas are skilled in the minutiae of contracting, and that's no bad thing. We work with lots of organisations, and their founders, their staff are unbelievably passionate and skillful at turning the people's lives around that they're aiming for, but actually dealing with a long drawn out contracting process or working through evaluation and outcomes is not their skill. So I do think that there's a role for consortiums like ours to work with ISCs, with others, to try and get our skill set to those smaller guys to say, actually, we have experience with this. Here's how we can try and market and present your ideas well. And I do think Living Well, we have a more advanced role to do that. And that's certainly something we're looking at. That question of why do some of our smaller members find it so hard is a question. I think there's all those bits. And I think finally, again, it's a dull thing to say, but it's the outcomes focused thing, in that I do it myself. We often have some great ideas, and here's the project we want to do, here's the business you want to run, here's the outputs we're going to do with it. But actually what we're not great at explaining is here's the impact that it will have, here is the outcome on person A, B and C it will have. And so that will then save NHS Trust 1 £1,000 a head, or Council Trust 2 £2,000 a head. And again, for all of us who are sort of founders and passionate about this stuff, our brains aren't there, because our brains are thinking, I've got a brilliant idea, I've got innovation, help people, I want to dive in. But actually pulling back to say, here's the idea, but here is the direct impact, and here is how I'll show you the impact, is key. And I think that pilot bits of money to run a pilot, but be absolutely clear. I've seen so many brilliant pilots run by small organisations, but they haven't shown outcomes at the end of it. They haven't shown impact. And it's an absolute open goal. So that's the bit as well, I'd say.
All right. Laura, can you add anything to that?
I'll kind of take it from maybe a product perspective, a slightly different side of this. But I think in general, sales and marketing is difficult for all small businesses, whether you're social or not. But I think for social enterprises, the added level is that when you first set up, you're really focusing on that social impact, and sales kind of comes as a bit of an afterthought. Whereas if you haven't got the social impact to worry about, you can kind of crack on with your sales and marketing. So I think that's like quite often it's not having the resource to focus on sales and marketing. With a lot of the social entrepreneurs I've worked with, it's kind of marketing's been a bit of a scary word, or selling. And I think there's so many great social entrepreneurs that are so passionate about what they do, they kind of just want to give it away for free because they just want to create more impact. And I think it's for social entrepreneurs to be more comfortable. The selling isn't a dirty word. Marketing is not a dirty word. It's what you've got to do. And the more versed you are in sales and marketing, the more impact you can have, and it's having that comfort is the first step. Secondly, is having a good strategy. I think a lot of people I've spoken to, marketing is something that just gets done with the spare 5 minutes. Oh, I'll just go on Facebook and do a post and try and sell this, or I'll do that. Actually, you need a really strong strategy so that you're using your time in the best way to be able to reach the right market and to be the most efficient at selling what you do. And then I think the final part of that, really, the struggle is we all think customers would rather buy a social product than a kind of regular private sector product, that they choose ours over what's on the market. But without people really truly understanding the impact, they're focused on price, they're focused on the quality of the product, they're focused on how quickly they can get it. So I think it's, whilst we really want impact to be at the forefront, they're having that quality product that people want to buy, and then finding out that the impact is quite often the best way to market.
Yeah, I mean, I always say, given that the price and the quality is the same, why wouldn't you buy from a social enterprise? Because you get the added benefit, but the price might be slightly different, and therefore you are into a judgment by the buyer.
Yeah.
That makes it more difficult for them to buy.
And quite often with a social product or service, we have to charge more because there's the social impact behind that, and it just costs more to make or to do. And there are customers that are willing to pay more for that, but it's getting that message across. It's difficult, particularly as say in an online marketplace where anyone can just quickly find out the price of something in 10 different versions of it. How do you stand out? That is tricky.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So the next most popular question was the Buy Social project. What advice would you give about how to sell social enterprises and their services under the Buy Social project? Well, the Buy Social project locally was mine, so I'll answer that one. The advice I would give is to, as well as running your business, you need to network, I think, because you can't, no one will come to you necessarily just to buy your thing because you're a social enterprise. What you need to do is find other people who've sold to clients, find a client group that want to buy from social enterprises, and make sure your product addresses their needs. So, a lot of the sort of well-being type social enterprises could sell to anyone, but they've just got to capture someone's imagination that maybe has an office, and they buy it. The only problem with that is it's potentially a one-off purchase because you've trained all of that office in mental health first aid, so you need to then look at other similar clients and spend some time looking at who's like that person I've already sold to, who's got the same reasons for buying from a social enterprise, who's got the same business needs. And it's just a business function, it's just you searching for work or searching for trading opportunities is just a business function. You just need to do it in a workmanlike fashion. I mean, that's what I've just changed into, got a new job, and that's all it is. It's finding the right opportunities for your business. And if your business doesn't quite address it, make it fit. Develop yourself. Okay. We've only got a minute or so left. There's someone, Ben, specifically wants to know about how should they develop their health and social business, what are the real needs at the moment. Can you do that in just 10, 20, 30 seconds, please?
Oh, yeah, great. Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, I took the time, didn't I?
The needs are almost endless at the moment post-COVID. I think they're changing as we come out of COVID, but I think the really quick summary would be good high quality support localized to where people are, whether that be a health need or a mental health need. But again, I'm happy for that person who's asked the question to email me or tweet me, and I can give some more information on that.
Thank you. And Laura, there's one for you, but no one's voted it, but I think it's quite a good question. If you were starting from scratch, what would you sell on eBay?
You know what, if I could start from scratch a year ago, I'd probably sell face masks.
Yeah, good idea.
So something that's got a high demand at the moment with some kind of social purpose would work that out. But yeah,
I think that the point is, and you know, I come at it from a very particular point, that if you have a business, you could. It doesn't matter what the business is. You can put your profits into a social thing, like Bellow Water, for example. Karen's in the room, I think. You know, they put their profits into water aid. Right, that is a social enterprise. Let's say I've got a consulting firm. I put my profits into Warwickshire Young Carers because I love them. That's a social enterprise like anything else. So you could on eBay say, I'm going to import such and such, and the profits are going to go to so and so. Is that not a social enterprise? But it's a business that's going to make money, that's going to affect the world. You may not have a client group that I don't know if they're hard to employ, but a business that is a social enterprise is I think where we should be aiming for. And that's my point from earlier. It's got to be a business with a social outcome, but there's lots of ways of sort of skinning that particular problem. So I'm afraid that is it, and I've actually gone over, I think, by 2 minutes. But I think I've quite enjoyed it. It's a different format. It's not. Hopefully, behind your letters, you're all smiling, and that if you want to contact any of us again, please get in touch. But thanks, Sarah, for the opportunity to talk today.
Thank you very much, Tim, Ben and Laura. Great event, some really interesting ideas there. Loved the points that were made about marketing and the need to prioritize marketing and tell your story. And also loved the fact that you were able to identify some specific opportunities for people, and really delighted to hear about the eBay project. So thank you, Laura, for that. It's brilliant. So you've got 10 minutes in terms of a comfort break. We'll start back at 2:30 promptly for a 45-minute final workshop on the practical stuff. And so this is going to be the place where you're going to get all the hints and tips, stuff you need to do in your organization to get yourself ready to grasp those opportunities. So see you shortly. Bye.